All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at a literal masterclass in economic pivot strategy, specifically how Botswana is attempting one of the most strategic economic shifts in the modern mining world. They are moving from raw policy ambition to creating truly investable regional value chains. If you want to understand the future of global critical minerals, you really have to understand what is happening right here, right now in Botswana. It's super tempting to think that simply sitting on a gold mine, or, well, a massive deposit of copper and manganese in this case, is just a guaranteed ticket to riches. The world is desperate for the metals needed to power the energy transition. So having those rocks in the ground should mean automatic prosperity, right? Well, as we'll see today, that assumption is actually deeply flawed. There is a stark market signal happening right now. Scarcity does not finance weak projects. Global capital just isn't desperate enough to blindly throw money at bad projects just because a mineral is theoretically scarce. Investors are incredibly disciplined right now. They want de-risked, credible, and fully traceable supply chains. They aren't buying geology, they are buying the certainty of execution. Section 1. The Conversion Challenge, shortening the distance between geology and value. This is really the core tension we're unpacking. We need to look at how we close the massive gap between what is simply sitting in the dirt and what actually creates sustainable economic value. Look, having a mineral endowment is absolutely necessary. You obviously can't mine what isn't there. But having an investable project, that is what's actually decisive. A project has to be understood technically, permitted legally, financed commercially, and executed operationally. The gap between saying we have copper and we have a bankable copper mine is vast, and bridging that gap is Botswana's primary task. Moving on to Section 2, Botswana's mineral pivot, shifting the anchor from diamonds to copper. To understand why the government is pivoting so urgently, we have to look at their current economic landscape. Historically, diamonds have accounted for a staggering 80 to 93% of Botswana's mining GDP. It's an incredible legacy that basically built the modern infrastructure of the country. But imagine putting 93% of your nation's chips on a single luxury commodity. It leaves the country incredibly exposed to market fluctuations and long-term shifts in demand. Now contrast that historical diamond reliance with this number: a projected 25% global copper supply gap by 2035. This isn't just a slight market imbalance. We're talking about a massive, structural window of opportunity for a country that is ready to supply the energy transition. The world needs copper to build the future, and the current project pipeline just isn't going to cut it. And market spending proves this exact appetite. While overall investment in the broader critical minerals sector actually dropped by 9% recently due to market caution, spending specifically by copper-focused companies, that grew by 8%. Capital is retreating to what it considers safe, scalable, and essential. Copper is the absolute immediate entry point. Botswana has a massive geographic advantage to exploit here. They are leveraging their 3 operating copper mines in the Kalahari Copper Belt as their foundational anchor. Having an operating proof of concept with established concentrate routes and existing capital creates the infrastructure to eventually unlock other emerging higher-risk minerals like manganese, nickel, and graphite in the surrounding areas. Copper is literally paving the way for everything else. Section 3. The New Rulebook, the 2024 Mines and Minerals Amendment Act. To truly capture this opportunity, Botswana realized they couldn't just market their rocks. They had to completely rewrite the rules to enforce local value creation, but without spooking the international investors they desperately need. So this 2024 Amendment Act is how Botswana tries to thread the needle. They're making some bold demands, like requiring companies to process minerals locally as far as feasible, and allowing the government to take up to a 24% citizen working interest. But crucially, they pair these demands with strict, transparent investability tests. The commercial thresholds for local processing must actually make financial sense. It's a highly calculated, practical balance between citizen empowerment and keeping the capital flowing. Which brings us to Section 4, Building Value Competitively, the conversion pathway. Decreeing that companies must process minerals locally doesn't just magically build factories out of thin air. You need a highly logical, sequenced pathway. A project has to mature step by step. It starts at Step 1, raw public geodata. That potential must be proven and de-risked to become an investor-ready project at Step 2. Only then can you realistically enforce Step 3, which is competitive value addition and local processing. And ultimately, the goal is step 4, graduating into a fully integrated regional industrial node. You literally cannot skip these steps. The real discipline behind this policy is in the feasibility. Before forcing any local processing, Botswana insists on applying 7 rigorous tests. Does the project have the scale? Is there reliable power and water? Do the logistics make sense? Is the technology proven? Is the market there? And do we have the skills? If a processing plant fails these tests, it simply won't survive in the global market, regardless of government mandates. Section 5, Mining Beyond Borders, becoming a land-linked regional mineral hub. This brings us to a surprisingly realistic geographical strategy. Botswana has realized something absolutely crucial. They don't need to build every single piece of the supply chain inside their own borders. They are positioning themselves not as an isolated island, but as a trusted land-linked node. To the west, they use the Trans-Kalahari Road to access Namibian ports. To the north, the Kazangula Bridge taps into Zambian and DRC transport routes. And to the south, they integrate deeply with the massive South African industrial and financial system. They're utilizing their labor's strengths to create a regional scale that they just couldn't achieve alone. It really boils down to this mature economic philosophy. Compete where distinctive, but partner where scale is regional. Botswana will fiercely compete against its neighbors to attract early-stage exploration capital. But when it comes to massive infrastructure, like deep-water ports, huge power grids, or specialized processing hubs, they will gladly partner up to achieve the necessary scale. Section 6. The Action Agenda. From ambition to measurable execution. Look, an ambitious strategy is totally meaningless without a strict timeline and execution plan. Botswana knows the window is closing, and they've put themselves on a clock from 2026 to 2030. Their approach is incredibly disciplined. In the first 12 months, the absolute priority is making the new rules legible so investors know exactly what the landscape looks like. From months 12 to 36, the sprint shifts to crowding in exploration capital and packaging big cross-border corridor projects. Finally, between months 36 and 60, the ultimate goal is securing actual, bankable, regional processing investments. They are tracking real milestones here. So, what should you take away from this explainer? It's a fundamental shift in how we view resource economics. In the 21st century, true mineral wealth isn't just about digging rocks out of the ground. Honestly, that's the easy part. The real wealth is generated by seamlessly linking those rocks to the rest of the continent, designing integrated value chains that cross borders and leverage regional strengths. Which leaves us with a fascinating final question to ponder. As the global scramble for critical minerals intensifies, and as capital gets even more selective, is Botswana currently writing the exact playbook that the rest of the world will be forced to follow? Will this blend of uncompromising commercial discipline and deep regional integration become the absolute survival blueprint for resource-rich nations everywhere? I highly recommend keeping an eye on how this unfolds over the next few years. It's going to be remarkable to watch.